The future of talk is here. Power 102 Digital.
Yes, indeed, it is Power 102 Digital Wednesday, the 15th day of May 2024. Hard Talk starts now with host Farid Ali and his very special guest, Dr. Vanis James. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon, David, and good afternoon to the listening public. Uh, Dr. James, it's always a privilege to have you with us. It's good to see you, and we look forward to the discussion this afternoon. Perhaps I could start right at the pinnacle of an article that seemed to be penned in the context of your opinion. Um, it's dated, I'm seeing this on Friday, April 19, 2024. Um, and I'm quoting here from an article by Corey Connelly. It states that economist Dr. Vanos James says community in Tobago want their rights reflected in the Constitution so they can pursue their own development. And when I get into the brevity of the article, it later says that James said that they even compared themselves to Canaan Bonaccord, saying it was the only place they saw development taking place. Clearly, that was said on the platform of the fact that um, you're noticing and observing as an economist and a social commentator that development is taking place in Tobago, but it's concentrated in the eyes of Tobagonians in that Canaan Bonaccord area. But in areas like Lansfome, Speyside, Charlottesville, Roxborough, there are bitter complaints from all of them that they are being left behind. Um, Basically, what you were saying, and in paragraph 2 of the same article, it says there's a Bill of Rights that speaks to individual rights. They want a part of the Bill of Rights or supplemental Bill of Rights to reflect the rights of communities to pursue their self-determination agenda, looking after themselves rather than depending on anyone else to ensure development. But perhaps, Dr. James, you could develop that a little bit for us, seeing that we have you in the flesh. Is it that you're seeing that Tobagonians as a people need to have a stake in their own development rather than central government dictate from afar?
No, that's not quite the story that I am hearing from the communities. And let me just put that in context for you. After Dr. Rowley announced the push for constitution reform, I was asked by at least one member of the committee about my opinions on the matter. And I made it clear that what I would do, instead of issuing my own opinion, which I have, I would go to the communities, hold a set of focus groups in all of them, or at least as many as I can, and ask for their opinions. And then I will combine that with what I think professionally and share the results with the committee. It is in the course of that exercise, I have now spoken to 10 communities, and it's in the course of that exercise that I got the information that I shared with the journalist and with the committee in Belgrade now, and as well as in Scarborough, of course. But what the communities are saying doesn't amount to admission that there is development in Canaan Bonaccord. What they're really saying is, what the evidence I have tells me that you cannot say there is development going on in Tobago concentrated in Canaan Bonaccord. The data we have on the Tobago economy is that we are well behind the national development curve, 62 years behind the national condition of 1960. If you count from 1962 to now, that's about 62 years. The Tobago GDP per capita is now at $3,880 something per person US. And the national figure is somewhere near 16,000. So we are in 1962, GDP per capita for the country was 4,800 and something US dollars per person. So where Tobago is now is even below where the country was back in 1962. So that doesn't amount to development going on in Tobago. But what they are saying is they are observing things are happening. Buildings are going up. Some tourism product is developing down there, and so on in Canaan Banaccord. And they're noticing that set of changes because of their proximity to the airport and some of our prime beaches. And they live in communities where they're not seeing anything happening. They think they are being left behind by whatever is happening in Tobago, if anything much on that front that you might describe as development. So that's the picture. And they want to be able to look after themselves. They told me as recently as Monday night, my last meeting, I was told the community development division is not working for us. This was in Argyle. And this is the message I'm getting in all the communities I've spoken to, all 10. What they're doing now, not working. If we had the resources and we could spend on our own efforts, we would produce a much better set of results and everything, including crime prevention, education of our children, development of our economies, building the tourism sector, upgrade of housing, everything they could think of, maintenance of our infrastructure. They are all confident they could do a much, much better job than is being done by the THA's Division of Community Development and what its name is, and by the central government, which is not responsible for much of anything called community development in Tobago anyhow. So they think they are being left behind, and the fundamental reason for it is that they are not being given the opportunity to take responsibility for themselves. And a common point in pretty much all the meetings is this point. They think that the communities represent a third pillar of development alongside the private sector, individual businesses, and the government, and that we are missing something as a country when we ignore the huge potential, including the community entrepreneurial potential, community enterprise, community-owned, collectively owned enterprise, kind of like an elaboration, a kind of magnification of the old-fashioned notion of cooperatives and so on. As you know, the only one of those that has really worked at all is the credit union. Yeah. So they think that they can do a much better job through community enterprise at building a third major plank of community of economic development in the country. And it's a lost opportunity, and they want to make it clear that provisions are now needed in the country, in the Constitution, to empower them to do what they need to do for themselves.
In the article I read, another aspect where you said, this is it, James said, they want to put an end to that and give room for them to pursue creative community entrepreneurship. They say that is something that is missing from the national development agenda. You went on to say, he said that communities also want the right to be recognized in the Constitution with power to formulate and create community authority and spend the public funds.
Correct. That's it. They don't want any handouts anymore. Everybody's paying taxes. The taxes are for the operation of the government. The government doesn't have to be defined at the central government level and the local government level like the THA or the local municipal corporations in Trinidad and so on. You can define a community authority that allows them to organize themselves properly with accountability and transparency and consensus building to look after themselves. They have ideas about what should be done. Just this week, I got a detailed proposal from one community, a whole series of things they asked me to refine into a well-constituted proposal that they could use to go out and raise resources. And they're talking about powerful issues like high-quality musical education for the talented children they see in their communities, sports education, to create income-generating potential among people who could then go and make money on the international stage and bring it back to the communities. And they're confident that that is by and large what would happen, rather than the current scenario in which people who are talented simply pack their bags and leave and never show up again. Now, they want to be able to support those kinds of initiatives, but they also understand that, like in Lansford, for example, I was told, the community invented the Blue Food Festival. The Blue Food Festival, they think, could make genuine money as a tourism attraction, but also as something that could be sold, to bring people in on a commercial basis, so they could make money from it. They lost it to the THA because they didn't have the power and the authority and the resources from a normal fund to develop it. So what they're saying is they need their fair share. Doesn't have to be large, but fair. That allows them to take on the responsibility to build up the assets in their community, to generate income for themselves that could be shared among themselves. I was told the same thing in Argyle, where you have the famous Argyle waterfall. These are assets they think could be developed much better and commercialized much better for the benefit of the community if they had the power to act. And I think as an economist myself, they're onto something here. This business of a third pillar is a huge point they're making.
Now, I'm a layperson. If the THA Act is structured in such a way that everything must come through the THA, central government to the THA, then filter down to the people, what you're suggesting in terms of empowering communities?
Not me suggesting what they are saying they want.
What they're suggesting, where they want to be, these communities want empowerment, they want access to the resources to develop themselves. The central government and the THA isn't structured in such a way, in my observation, to allow for that. Wouldn't that mean that we would have to have structural changes in the way the THA manages Tobago, or structural institutional changes within the THA in order to facilitate communities receiving funding to develop themselves?
Because you need constitution reform.
Right.
That's what they're saying.
It doesn't seem, in my humble view, in the THA's interest to empower the communities.
Well, that's the THA. The communities own the country. The individuals in the communities are the owners of the country. The THA is a set of employees. They don't have any say in the matter. The issue is, what do the people of Trinidad and Tobago want? And I went to the communities to ask them, the leaders. Every one of those focus groups, 10 and 11 people, run as a normal focus group. Everybody had to answer the question and explain themselves. They are saying, as community leaders, as village council leaders and so on, most of the people who come are village council leaders. They experience the matter of trying to organize initiatives in their communities. They are saying the time has come, long overdue, for us to do much better than we are doing with the village councils. And you have to be careful with the idea about the empowerment through the THA, because you have to remember the THA runs a division of community development. And the division of community development is being declared by the communities to not be working for them. I asked in Argyle, how much money does the THA's community development division spend on Argyle every year? And every one of them, I had about 12 of them in there, 13, saying they don't know. They want to know. They're asking me, well, you the economist, why don't you tell us? We don't know. Nobody knows. They want to, every community tells me the same thing. They want to have a right in the Constitution to be empowered. A part of that empowerment must be a sensible, reasonable, carefully allocated, with an allocation principle governed by what they are describing as a Senate in Tobago, managing spatial equity of access to development opportunity. They want that to be a normal constitutional right they have. Now, if you go into the country and you're asking the country, as I mentioned to Dr. Farrell in the meeting that Monday in Tobago in the Western constituency, do you want to tell the constituents what to want, or do you want to know what they want you to put into the Constitution? he admitted that he had to let them tell him what to want. Well, they are telling me what they want, and I'm reporting it to you and the country.
Would
They
you
want
agree
the
with me that
constitution to be reformed. They don't want the THA to be responsible for them in the way it's going on now, because it's not working.
But what political capital can the THA derive from empowering communities? Because the THA is an entity that would want to get their political capital and score their political points by saying that they are responsible for what's happening in Landsformer, they're responsible for what's happening in different communities. If it is we empower the communities, and using the pronoun we very loosely, if the communities are empowered and they become sufficiently self-sufficient and able to manage their own affairs or its own affairs, then how does that redound to the benefit of the THA's executive?
The THA is not an entity in itself, Fareed. The THA is a construct we, the people, put together. I was there when we fought for internal self-government to put a construct in place to manage the Tobago economy. It's been doing an awful job from the very start. It's a construct of the people, of the country. And what we need now is to recognize that that construct does not work. They don't have a self-interest in themselves. We organize ourselves through that, and we do not have any more interest in operating it the way it is operating, because it is not working. That's the reason Dr. Rowley was forced to go into the matter of constitution reform, even if he is doing it in a terrible way. But he recognizes the thing is not working, and he wants to say, let's make a move on it. Well, then you have to listen to what the population wants. Listen to what the people want in a serious effort by asking them directly, do you want this, that, the other? What else do you want? And so on. That's what I am doing. But it's not for the THA to say what the people want. It's for the people to say what kind of THA they want.
So is it correct of me to say that the THA ought to be an instrument of the people, that they ought to act on behalf of the people and be in tune with what people on the ground want?
Absolutely. That's the fundamental principle of the rule of law. Government is a design of the people to serve what the interests of the people, to respond to what the people want. It's a convenient mechanism for the people to work together to get certain things done. You and I, if you've been a student of political science, as I have been, would know that that was the meaning in the French Revolution of liberty, equality, and fraternity. Fraternity is just a full embodiment of the entire principle of joint decision-making, autonomy, what you might call accountability, transparency. Joint decision-making is consensus building. All those things that the UN trumpets in the modern language was there. And I remember that was what Cromwell and his cronies cut off Charles I's neck for in 1649 in Britain. So the whole movement for quote-unquote representative government or democratic government was a movement to set up a form of government through which people could ensure their freedom and their liberty and their ability to look after themselves properly through a well-constituted government. What we have done in the Caribbean case, all across the Caribbean space, Spanish, French, whatever you want, English, all of these spaces, is set up these vulgar arrangements for authoritarian rule in which the government owns the process rather than the people owning the government. So now, when Rowley opened the door, he getting an earful from people. We don't want this authoritarian system anymore. They don't want a top-down government is the way they want it. They want a government that is bottom-up. And I was told in Argyle, we want the information to flow both ways. They can come and influence what we are deciding, and we must have the opportunity by the Constitution to influence whatever they are deciding in our name. So that's what these communities, and this is very brilliant of them, actually. Man, Fareed, if you come to one of those sessions, you'll be amazed at the amount of talent and intellect you are hearing in these communities. Wisdom.
Let's fast forward a bit. Tuesday, May 14, 2024, the Trinidad Guardian. I'm reading here an article by Elizabeth Gonzalez. It says Fali gives up finance in THA reshuffle. Baines removed as Community Development Secretary. Just allow me to read an opening paragraph. A little under a week after Chief Secretary Fali Augustine made internal changes to his executive, the Office of the Chief Secretary announced a reshuffle yesterday. A bit of commentary. Ansel Dennis was quoted. He questioned what difference the changes would make considering the limited power of assistant secretaries. Therefore, and I'm quoting again, therefore shifting around assistant secretaries will have no impact. It'll have no bearing. It will have no effect on administration of the THA. The Chief Secretary has not been leading by example, and it is difficult for him, even in cases where the action is warranted, for him to take the necessary action and remove the incompetent secretaries. Fali Augustine is approaching his final year in office. And what we're seeing is that he reshuffled his the THA structurally. He demoted a secretary to an assistant secretary. He put into certain positions as assistant secretaries. So he did a reshuffling, but it seems that from the commentary, it is being perceived as window dressing. My question to you is this. In your observation, as a social commentator, as an economist, what we are seeing playing out in the last few days within the THA in terms of the reshuffling, does that in any way assist, in keeping with our opening remarks, assist communities? Is that reshuffle in any way geared towards bridging that gap between the people and the THA executive or the institution that is the THA and improving the lives of the individuals, meaning the man on the street?
Absolutely not. And the question answers itself. It's Fali reorganizing his incompetent government. Dennis is heading in the right direction, maybe with the wrong reasons. But this government collapsed in 2022 and has been in a state of crisis essentially since then. They have lost their way. They have failed to keep any of the fundamental commitments of the kind that these communities are talking about to these people. And they've gone on with this old authoritarian system that has no chance. We have 62 years of evidence that and 43 years under the THA, has no chance of causing any progress in Tobago. Let me give you the data. Let me remind you that in 2022, the the Tobago economy collapsed. Remember, the THA, under the THA Act, is by and large responsible for the Tobago economy. That economy collapsed in 2022, declined by 2%. Some sectors declined by 37, 35%, and so on. And the data from the CSO that I've just completed analyzing for 2023 demonstrates that the collapse continues. So this is 2 straight years, the first 2 years of Fali's rule, 2 straight years of collapse. The whole government has demonstrated that it is completely incompetent to do the job assigned to it under the THA Act. So any reshuffling, I mean, it doesn't make any good for the people of Tobago. And on top of that, you want to remember, if the fault lies with Fali, what would happen in a normally well-organized parliamentary democracy like Britain is he would be removed from office. And if they put another one in there that is incompetent to pull the ship together, that other one would be removed as well. We wouldn't have to wait for the next election. That's what we mean when we say in a parliamentary democracy, the leader serves at the pleasure of the parliament, as against in the US, where the leader serves at the pleasure of the people. And you could only remove the president of the US for high crimes and misdemeanors. Incompetence is a good enough basis for removing Liz Truss and Boris Johnson in the British case. And it should be an appropriate basis for removing Fali. But they can't evaluate Fali. The team that he has is so grossly politically and maybe technically incompetent that they cannot evaluate Fali and remove him from office. And in any event, the structure of the THA doesn't really empower them to empower the THA to do that, because the entire THA is largely an executive body controlled by Farley. Now, when you weigh all that I'm saying there against the 2 years of decline, you could see that reshuffling the government has no bearing whatsoever on the generation of better results. We're well into 2024. The collapse is going to be continuing. They have done nothing for 2024 to reverse 2 years of collapse. I don't expect to see anything going on for the rest of the year that will even come close. Because one of the main things they ought to have done is keep the promise to the people of Tobago to reorganize the communities. The campaign promised what the communities are now asking for: room to look after themselves. I'm not surprised that Baines has proven to be a sore point in an incompetent lot. And the real reason is when you go to the communities and you talk to them, they're all extremely angry with the division. So they know Baines hasn't been doing anything. Then nobody in Tobago is going to come to his defense. But also you will find out nobody in Tobago will come to the defense of Farley, because his entire tenure in the THA has been one of failure. So reshuffling wouldn't make any difference to that. The question is, how do you reshuffle Farley? He could evaluate and reshuffle them, but who evaluates and reshuffles him? The structure is not there. We need to put it in place. That's what the constitutional reform has to address.
I don't mean to bring Watson Duke's comments into the equation, but based on what you just said there, Watson Duke is on record of offering advice in open forum to Farley to stand his ground and do not allow any coup within his executive or anyone trying to overthrow him. And but then following same, he was against the reshuffle. He said that he seemed to be saying to Farley to stand strong, and if it is he can't stand strong, then resign and have an election, call an election.
Well, why are you asking me about what Duke has to say? Watson Duke was the leader of the pack. He mashed up the party. He destroyed the prospects for leading anything worth talking about in the THA, and is about to waste 4 years of Tobago people's time. Why would you want me to comment on anything Watson Duke has to say? I don't think it's worth my while or the while of the people of Tobago. That's a failed agenda you're talking about there.
I'm happy with the comment you just made. I mean, I can live with that. My question is this. Do you foresee the plight of the people of Tobago improving under the subsequent, and let's speak futuristically, the subsequent demise of Farley and his administration and the return of the PNM? Do you foresee any changes, or we need the same problem is going to repeat itself, and we need to have a holistic change, constitutional reform, a reform of the amendment to the THA Act, or perhaps an entirely different superstructure put in place in order for you to get those results that you're seeking, meaning the communities to get those results?
I think so. I think the one good thing that I have seen Dr. Rowley do in his entire political career is this move he's making now to admit that the whole shebang is rotten, is not working for the people of Trinidad, and it's not working for the people of Tobago. And it needs to be reformed properly. He's going about it the wrong way because he's left the opposition out of the conversation and didn't have the decency to bring them in early and form a properly constituted committee that could be a focal point of negotiations about the way we want to reform the Constitution. But the move to reform the Constitution is the right move for the country. Going about it the wrong way, so you're doing the wrong thing, you're doing the right thing the wrong way, which amounts to doing the wrong thing. But it is proper to say that the country needs constitutional reform, because with the existing constitutional arrangement, we cannot make proper decisions about what to do in our communities. We can't make proper decisions about what to do in the local government bodies in Tobago and in Trinidad. And we can't make proper decisions at the national level about what to do with respect to the responsibilities we assign to the central government. Constitutional reform is required for Tobago and for the communities to make any progress, critically required. And if you allow me to tell you when you want me to, I will tell you a couple of things the communities say they want in place within the framework of the organization of the THA, how they want the THA to be organized, and how they want the Tobago government to be organized, and how they want the national government to be organized to deal with this.
Please tell us that. That's what we have you here for. It will be interesting to hear.
Well, one of the things they make clear is if they granted any such thing as empowerment, if we manage to work that out and get the country to agree to empower the communities, one of the things that will happen pretty much immediately on them taking up the possibilities there is that as soon as they start doing serious things like upgrade the way they treat their children, deal with crime prevention, address issues of high quality education, community enterprise, and so on. The next level up, like the THA in the government, will set about the business of making law to control what they're doing. And they make clear, they therefore think it is a constitutional right they should have to influence whatever lawmaking agenda the THA undertakes. The THA will need the right to make law to regulate the behavior of the Executive Council. But they want that when the THA is making those laws, if any of those laws are going to affect the communities in any way, they must be able to go to the THA as a matter of constitutional right and say, well, this is what we think about your education laws, because this is what we're doing in the community, and this is how we understand whatever law you make could help us. You're not making law for yourself, you're making law to help us. And the same would be true when you're dealing with management of crime prevention and so on. When they're making any of those kinds of laws or policies, the communities want the right to be able to have a say in the way those are made. And they said explicitly, we don't want them to make any law and then come and tell us this is how it must be. We must have a say in how those are made. That amounts to a type of constitutional construct in which the oversight process has to be in place inside the THA, and therefore you have to change the numbers and so on to allow for that. And those processes must then be set up to engage stakeholders, including the communities, individuals, communities, the government of Trinidad and Tobago, foreigners, whoever interested in helping us make progress, must have the right to appear in those processes, provide information, and help these committees that would do the oversight make appropriate law. And the communities are saying they want access to that. They want to have the right as a matter of constitutional provision to be able to participate in that process. And they want to be sure that in the process of doing so, they must be able to go freely without any humbug by any community development division and say, this is what our guys say, this is what Mason Hall say, this is what Lance Tommy say, and so on about these issues. They also want the same structure in the national government, that when the national government, which is a much more powerful body than a THA or any local municipal authority, is making law, they must have access to that process to be able to say, our experience on the ground tells us this is what you have to put into your lawmaking agenda. And those are just two of the three major things that they are saying they want to see as provisions in the Constitution. In other words, joint decision-making systems across the board, starting from the community and going all the way up to the central government.
You know, you're saying this, and I'm processing the information. My question is this: the election that brought this current executive into executive management of the THA, if I put it that way, it was a 14-1 victory. Right. And there are 14 elected members whose responsibility it is to represent the interests of their community at the executive level. And therefore, when you talk about the community want to be involved, isn't the existing structure geared towards their involvement through their elected officials?
Absolutely not. If you understand your constitution, you would know it's also not true for any unit below the government in Trinidad. No mechanism exists in either the THA or the government in Trinidad for the owners of the country to properly inform the government about its thoughts and their wishes when the government is acting, quote unquote, on their behalf. No provisions exist. And what you have to understand here, Fareed, is that there are Tobago level things that the THA must handle. The communities are seeing that. There are community level things they want to handle. There are Tobago level things the THA must handle. But when the THA is making law to handle its Tobago level things, they will necessarily impinge on the communities. So the communities want to keep an eye on what they're saying. The constituency representatives are going to the THA to do THA level things, not community level things. The old system in which they were supposed to be doing all of that hasn't been working for 60 plus years, and the communities don't trust it anymore. They think it's time to abandon it and set up a whole new, different frame of reference. You put a set of people in the communities to look after themselves, with power to help the communities look after themselves, and you put another set of people in the THA to do Tobago level things that communities can't do. So the road between two villages would be a Tobago level thing. But inside a village, they could look after their own infrastructure. That's the point they're making. And I think they're deadly accurate on this interpretation. You don't have to assume that because you elect a rep to go to the THA, that rep understands what's happening in the communities and understands and even will empathize with the initiatives that the communities want to put in place. So, no, I don't think it is an appropriate way to look at the issue that they are raising at all, that you could say. And they recognize it. They say, we elect them, and then we don't see them until the next election. No village council operates that way. They told me in Argyle just on Monday, look, these leaders are here. We could pass by their door anytime and deal with them. They can't hide. They can't shut off the phone the way Fali and the team shut off the phone for 2 years. They can't hide. They're here. The reps that you sent to Scarborough, they could disappear. They could stop answer the phone, and we can't engage with them. So that system isn't working. That's their point. I think they're right on that too.
I want to jump a bit. Today's newspaper, Wednesday, the 15th of May 2024, the Newsday, I'm quoting an article here written by Joey Bartlett. It reflects on Hines meaning Fitzgerald Hines, government fighting crime in Tobago. And a comment here, UNC Naparima MP Rodney Charles asked Hines what the government planned to do to combat crime in Tobago, citing Tobago having already passed half of last year's total murder toll in 5 months. Hines replied that of the 8 murders committed in Tobago for the year, 4 of them were gang-related. 1 was the result of domestic situation, 2 were drug-related, and the cause of the other was unknown. He goes on to say that he added that one murder had already been solved, 2 cases were awaiting DNA results before they could move forward. What is your view in terms of Tobago has always been associated with serenity, with a place to relax, a comfortable environment. It's not the same rhythm as Trinidad for obvious reasons. But with these increased murders, this can't augur well for the peace of mind and the mental space that Tobagonians are accustomed enjoying. You know, to put it in lay language, Tobagonians used to boast about how community-oriented the place is. You can leave your car open and come back there, and you don't have to worry about anybody doing anything. The climate in Tobago, the social climate has changed. Do you see the social climate having de-escalated to where it is tied into the fact that there's a general malaise where people feel that they aren't part of the decision-making processes? The communities are dislocated from the THA, that it's a general structural collapse, and that the criminality we're seeing is bearing fruit based on that platform?
Well, let me give you a proper, well-constructed answer to the the whole probe. First of all, Fitzgerald Hines and Dr. Rowley and the entire cabinet is not capable of preventing the emergence of criminality in Tobago sitting down in cabinet. That agenda, the communities are very clear, needs to filter down a set of responsibilities to them. In the Plymouth meeting that I held a week and a half ago, I was told by community leaders, they know every gang. They know every gang leader. They interface with them on a daily basis, insofar as they're operating in Plymouth. They know where they came from, why they became gang leaders, what help they needed to prevent them becoming gang leaders when they were children coming up, and they were just helpless, unable to intervene. They saw all these problems that exist in families. When I was a little boy growing up in Tobago, in Charlottesville, for example, we had social structures in place to help troubled families, where you saw seeds of criminality emerging. And the community would put arrangements in place to try to help them. But even then, people were really not properly empowered with the appropriate resources or authority. But they know. So if the issue is the emergence of gangs in Tobago, for example, you say half the murders are gang related. If the gangs are coming from Trinidad and you don't set up Trinidad properly to deal with criminality, then there will be an issue of a filtering over. Okay. But to the extent that any of that is homegrown, if you put enough of the responsibility in the hands of the communities, and if you properly decentralize the police service to collaborate with communities to deal with these emerging issues, the fully substantive meaning of community policing and so on, we will get a handle very quickly on this enormous amount of trauma that is emerging in Tobago, where people I've never heard so much conversation about crime in my life as a Tobagonian until this year and last year. So the structure of the organizational structure of the country is not adequate to deal with the incentive to crime, especially the incentive that I see in the national data set. If you look in the country's data, there are near 15,000 well-educated people in Trinidad without jobs. You're talking about people with first degrees and so on, O-levels, A-levels, full certificates, post-secondary education, no jobs. When you have that large pool of people who can't find normal, gainful employment, there is no reason not to expect them to find a way to make a living. And that find a way long ago used to be in the informal sector. And now that informal sector has become an underground sector with a lot of scope for criminality. But if you set up the system properly to take advantage of what the communities are pointing to, which is enormous potential to generate income, find solutions, intervene early, and so on, then they would be able to take the sting out of this trend towards crime. In John Dial, one wise older lady said, we see young men who we could help. They're talented, they're on the side of the road, liming whole day. We pain for them, right? We feel their pain, but we can't help them. That is why we are calling for the community to be empowered to intervene at all the levels. One lady told me, right? She said in Canaan Bonaccord, she said, look, we had footballers in Tobago, much more talented than Dwight York. We wanted to, right from my community, we wanted to help that footballer in the same way Dwight York was helped, so he could go, earn big income, and come back to Canaan Bonaccord as he would do if we were able to help him. And we were helpless. We wanted to educate him in football using the same tools Bertil Sinclair was using to help Dwight York. We wanted to put on clinics, bring coach from Brazil. These are the kinds of things these communities are thinking about, building up their musical talent. One of the projects I was asked to help them frame this week, gone from Charlottesville, is a rich project to establish a music school to take advantage of the rich talent in music in the community. Steel pan, voice, horns, whatever, versatile. So they could take young people off the street and they say reduce the instincts and the incentives to get involved in crime. None of that could be done, and nobody in Port of Spain can know that that potential exists in a community like Charlottesville. So you keep running it from Port of Spain, and you'll keep running up the crime bill in the country. If you decentralize and listen to your communities, then you have a shot at fixing this problem early, nipping it in the bud. That's what the communities are really saying. So never mind what Fitzgerald Hines says. The structure of the government that he is running makes sure that he cannot fix this problem. Just like you see runaway crime in Jamaica, you're seeing runaway crime in Trinidad, you see it exploding into the Tobago space, and we'll all be helpless to watch it if we don't take seriously the agenda of constitutional reform to empower people to nip this thing in the bud early with their own novel solutions and informed solutions. May I make a last point to you on it? What they're saying is they have all the information. Fitzgerald Hines really has 1/10 of the information he needs. And it is not information about where the latest set of crimes are committed. It's information about the underlying causes of the crime they see in the homes and in the communities where the vulnerabilities emerge and need to be dealt with early in the life of children. They all say, we saw them evolve and we can't do nothing about it. I hope you understand what I'm saying.
I'm following you. What is your comment in terms of, do you think that these social factors in Tobago, in terms of the community spirit and the community factors that you described when you were growing up as a young man in Tobago, that was there, where the communities policed itself and policed its own people? So you see a problem and you address the problem and you try to address the cause and the root and sort of keep that tree that is veering in the wrong direction, keep it a little straight. Is it that sort of family atmosphere has broken down in Tobago?
Not really. I know the whole of Tobago every day. It's there. The spirit is there. The helplessness is also there. When I was young growing up, people tried, but the helplessness was there too. Look, I don't want to take up your show, but when I broke the record with the number of subject passes in Tobago back in 1969, people in the village came to me and asked me, so what are you going to do next? And they gave me money. The villagers, they didn't wait on the government to help me. They gave me money, and those funds are what fueled my efforts to do A-levels and what have you, and end up in university and end up where I am today. Eternally grateful to them. That's how the society worked. I know for a fact the community built its own library. The community put resources together to send people to university. I remember that because my father and other leaders like that were part of that process. So I could tell you the communities had systems in place, and if they had resources, they would do a lot better than they did over that time span. And the same spirit exists today. That's what the people are telling me. They're willing, they know what to do, they're just helpless, because as they point out to me in all those meetings, you want to do these things, you have your priorities, but you have no money to finance it, and you can't cause development if you can't invest in it. That's deadly accurate science they're giving it there, and they ain't going to know, most of them ain't going to know university.
I have you here and I can't resist asking. The last general election, if I recall correctly, the division would have been 22-19, so that would have accounted for the 41 seats. The two Tobago seats were significant to the PNM holding the majority that it has. Farley Augustine is on record, and Watson Duke is on record as stating that they are going to contest seats in the general election. They are both securing the seats for their respective parties, if I might put it that way. What is your view in terms of the Farley Augustine administration commanding the two seats in Tobago in the general election. Do you think that they're in with a chance?
Well, if you listen to me talk about what my communities are telling me, you should be able to answer that question for yourself. The record speaks for itself, no? Their records would tell you that they have no basis for talking to Tobagonians about putting them in any kind of office. And I think there are only two possibilities in the next election in Tobago. Either the PNM will win or some other outfit will win. But this team of people and their demonstrated incompetence can never persuade the swing vote that I know operates in Tobago to vote for them. I could predict that from now. I don't even need to go and do a poll. I know Tobagonians like the back of my hand, and I could tell you there is about a 20% swing vote in Tobago, and they're grinding the teeth at this massive demonstration of incompetence and let me say almost craziness by Farley and Watson and the team. And I don't think they have any chance of persuading that 20%, much less the PNM members who swung, to wake up and go to the polls and put them in power on the backs of that record. So, and of course, don't forget, in any election, if I am alive, I campaign in, I don't wait on nobody to bring, I just go out and campaign. And I could tell you right now, I will campaign if I'm alive here. And I will not be campaigning for them. So how are they going?
Dr. James, thank you so much. You spent 50 minutes with us, and it has been entertaining and informative.
I can't ask more informative than entertaining.
Certainly so, more informative than entertaining. But you have a way of putting things across. I can't ask for a better punchline in terms of an ending.
All right, Fareed. Thanks for inviting me.
Thanks again. We look forward to seeing you sometime again. Thank you so much. Enjoy your evening.
Okay, Fareed.
Mr. Duke, good afternoon. It's good to see you.
Good afternoon, sir.
Well, I must say that it's a pleasure to have you. We had spent some time with you sometime in the past, and we were waiting for more things to happen in Tobago. And I found no better time than now. Maybe I could get straight into to a comment that you made. I was looking at today's newspaper, an article from The Guardian, and I'm quoting here. It's in relation to the fact that, and we have the rubric, Farley gives up finance in THA reshuffle, Baines removed as community development secretary, and it goes on, and I want to quote you. It says here, Progressive Democratic Patriots leader Watson Duke also felt the changes would not benefit Tobago or its people. Also meaning that Ansel Dennis, he saw no value in some of the reshuffle that took place. My question to you is this, and I'm quoting here, this reshuffle is putting 7 square pegs in 7 round holes. There is no perfect fit here. I am not sure how it will fit, but there must be a next reshuffle coming up. I'm concerned over what was expected and what was delivered. Mr. Duke, could you elaborate on what you're saying there? I, as a layperson, an observer from where I sit, I'm looking at what's happening in Tobago through the editorial, because I'm not there on the ground in the way that you may be. It seems that Farley Augustine has reshuffled and done some tweaking within his THA, within his executive. But persons like Ansel Dennis and yourself, and you could only speak for yourself, you really don't see you don't see how that is going to redound to the benefit of the Tobagonian on the ground. And perhaps this is a nice point for you to elaborate on what you said earlier through the article. How does the Tobagonian on the ground, having elected this administration into executive power with a 14-1 election, thumping of the incumbent PNM at the time, how have they featured in the lives of the average Tobagonian in making things better for the time that they've spent in office? And just in the context of this reshuffle, how this reshuffle is going to continue to improve the Tobagonians' lives?
It is left to be seen. Let's make it absolutely clear. It is left to be seen. And maybe he has trained them and we are unaware, but from the face of it, there is no excitement over the reshuffling, and sometimes reshuffling brings excitement based on the public persona of those persons who are entering a new field. One believes that they will bring a lot with them, but there is no excitement among the people of Tobago regarding the move that has been made. But he's entitled, and since he's entitled, he may as well as do what he thinks is best. I would say to you that the public would judge him and they would evaluate those who have been placed into office, and let's see how it goes.
You know, in having you live on air as we do, I can't help myself but ask the question. It's public information that your relationship with Mr. Augustine and the relationship you all shared isn't what it is. Has that relationship improved outside of the public eye? Have you all begun to communicate and it's more civil in terms of you could share your ideas with him and he can tell you, well, you know, where he thinks you're wrong, and you could inform him, you know. Has there become communication? Has that any sort of communication, or it has remained? Well, I can't say what it has remained. What is the clearly you all were a team and you all combined together so efficiently and effectively to rid the PNM, or rid Tobago of the PNM. What is that relationship like in this current time? And I'm saying that purely because I read in the newspaper where you seem to have softened your position towards him. You were saying in one of the articles during the course of the week that you stand by Farley in the context of resisting any coup within the executive, and that if it is he can't manage what is happening, then he ought to call an election. Is it that you all are communicating and things have improved in terms of the standoff or stalemate? Correct me if I'm wrong.
All right, let me establish this, that unfortunately, I do not operate on the basis of friends. I operate on the basis of what can someone offer to Tobagonians or to the political directorate.
Yes.
And in this case, Farley and I has never been friends. We were never friends. And we continue not to be friends, but we continue to have conversation on various issues from time to time. I will always speak from my viewpoint, and so will he speak from his viewpoint. So it is not a paliwal thing. Maybe it's because there's too many paliwals in government. We have governments not operating the way it should. In my mind, people need not be paliwals. People just need to have a common shared understanding and stick to that understanding on the basis that people should always be placed first instead of your personal feelings. I hope that I made it clear and simple. I don't think I can make it more simple than that, except I put on my local vernacular and speak the way Tobagonians speak.
No, we follow you clearly. It's
nice, lovely.
You've expressed yourself well. The central government has embarked on an exercise where they are seeking feedback from the population, from the electorate, both in Tobago and Trinidad, with regard to constitutional reform and their views. What is your view, Mr. Duke? What is your view in terms of, do you think the Constitution of Trinidad and Tobago, as it exists now in its current form, is working for the people of Tobago? And if so, what can be done in terms of reform to empower Tobago or the Tobagonians?
Well, let me say this, right? When we speak of constitutional reform, we're talking about what constitutes Trinidad and Tobago, what makes up the imaginations of the people, where the desires of the people lie. Yeah? Mm-hmm. Contrary to, I heard a piece of Dr. Vanus James' statement, contrary to his beliefs, which are his beliefs, and you have a right to hold them tight, Tobagonians are not about a piece of pie. Tobagonians are not about that. Tobagonians want the whole factory. We don't want a whole slice, we don't want a whole cake, we want the whole factory. Tobago should be able to represent itself while sharing a relationship with Trinidad. So what we are talking about is improvement in the relationship between Trinidad and Tobago to the point where Tobago really has the power to exercise its self-determination. That is one, to determine freely among itself its own political status, whether it should be independent from Trinidad, whether it can become independent in the future. It should be able to determine that, whether it continues in the integrated relationship with Trinidad, it should determine that, or whether it should just form an association as the European Union, as the Eastern Caribbean states, or as the Organization of American States. These are Tobagonians' prerogative. They're our inalienable rights. And that is where Tobagonians are. We want that freedom to determine our own political status and to freely decide within the island of Tobago, without any external influence, our economic, social, and cultural development. That idea where my colleague Vanessa James is talking about villagers want money and that better, that's an old idea. That's an idea that the PDP sold on the market during the campaign, and persons bought into the idea. It was one where I personally said to the people of Tobago that we would start with $10 million for every constituency. And there is 15 constituencies, which means that every year we would divide 150 million among all the constituencies of Tobago, meaning the electoral districts. There are 15 of them in the THA. So when he comes with the idea as if it's a new idea and it's a fun idea, I want to tell my colleague that he's being not very honest, right? That idea was sold to Tobagonians. Tobagonians bought into the idea. My colleague, Fali Augustine, this time Fali Augustine, my colleague, chose not to honor that. I told him where to get the money from. The money comes from the development fund, all right, or the budget that Trinidad gives to us for development, which is about 300 million, 250 thereabout. Take 150, put it into the communities, and you partner with people within the communities to develop their communities on an annual basis. They take on projects from a list of projects that the assemblyman of the area, whether it's PNM or UNC, well, not UNC, PNM or whoever, they will sit with their people, and you're going to create what is called a community council, which is much larger than a village council, where every person is represented in one way or fashion. And there you come up with a list of projects for the 4-year term, but you begin to prioritize the projects based on the availability of money, which is first, which is second, which is third. Once that is accepted, the THA through community development will then disburse the funds with its attendant professionals to ensure the funds are well spent within the community for development of the community. These are plans we have. So my colleague Vanessa James walking around saying that he has polled the people and they have said this and that's what people want, and he's trying to cast down Fali Augustine and myself and saying he's going to campaign. That is very disingenuous, and I think it's very dishonorable for him to take that position as if to say he's right and he's going to get us out of office. Fali is his own man. As I said, we have not been friends, and I'm my own man. At the end of the day, Vanas has lived his full political life. Why is he trying to now disturb my children? Who's coming up with some old idea he has? The people will not take him on in Tobago, right? And I hate to say it, but we may have to go to war, political war that is. But I think he should cool himself out and relax and allow people to do their stuff. Give your comments as you want to do, and it's okay to give free and unbiased comments, but do not paint a picture as if you were this luminary with this great idea that no one came out with. That is in our mandate. That we spoke of $10 million for every electoral district, and there are 15. At the end of 4 years, we would have spent $40 million in every constituency It's just that my colleague, Father Augustine, have chosen not to do it. And I can't beat him for that. He knows the commitment. He agrees to the commitment. But when he got inside, he said he's an independent. What can we do? The law allow it. He said he's an independent. That to me is wrong. It's dishonorable for Father to say he's an independent and abandon the mandate, abandon the social contract. But it's even more disingenuous for my colleague, Evanus James, to come up as if to say he's the only man with this idea, got it from the people, and the people want that, and they're not being offered that. Yes, they're not being offered that, but we offer them that. And I told you how we are going to get the money from a development budget. I told you where the money will be placed in a community development vault. I told you how decisions will be made on a community level, where you have maybe about 200 persons from representing farmers, hairdressers, different people within the community, and they will decide upon community projects. The money will be used to employ people to get these projects done. So it's a way to keep Tobago's community developing per annum. And I'm worried about my partner. Maybe he has forgotten. He campaigned with us last time. So I don't know how he's coming around now as if this is something that the people just came up with, and he came up with it. We spoke about community economics.
In all fairness, Tim, I don't think, if you had tuned in earlier, he wasn't owning that himself. He's saying that based on his conversation with the various communities, they had a point of view that they want to be more involved in the management of their own affairs. He used Lansfome as an example, where he stated that the Blue Food Festival found its root in Lansfome, but the THA had began to own it, and now they have taken control of that festival, and the people of Lansfome have nothing redound to their benefit, based on an idea or development that was really initiated in their community. Basically, what he seemed to have been saying, and I'm not his voice in any way, but just out of fairness to him, he said that this is he's transferring the information he got when he went into these communities and had discussions with them. So it seems that it's a community.
I sat in one of those meetings where he is getting information, and he's asking leading questions. That's not the, I mean, I don't know, maybe that's the way he chose to do his interview. He's asking leading questions like, would you all like to have your own development, your own money in this community here? You know what I mean? So he's asking 5 questions, 5 leading questions, which the answer naturally to the right thinking person is yes. And then he concludes. Yeah? Okay. So, I mean, let's get it right. Vanus James is a wise man. He has done his time, but go to rest now, Vanus. Take your time. Go to rest. Do not let your days be measured in a dishonorable way. I have children, young children coming up, right? Who is he to say that he will campaign against Watson Duke, against Farley? Come on, you have more things to do with your time than that, right? What have he offered to you since you are here? What has he offered to you? Nothing. Those ideas have been crystallized in the 2021 campaign. As I said to you very clearly, where the money is coming from, how the money is being spent, and the very transparent nature in which we will come up with these projects, and how the teacher is going to monitor it from their end with their team of professionals.
If you had to grade this administration, the current executive, the current structure that is the THA in its embodiment as it stands now, I think it's a fair time we can assign a grade to their performance levels. If you have to grade them between 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, how would you, in your view, if you can, grade them? Their performance through the course of the time that they've been there. It's because it's only a year left in office that they would have.
Well, I will not grade them because I'm not in that frame of mind hearing my colleague Vanus James talk some nonsense a while ago. It's either the PNM or someone else will win. I think that I will have to focus this meeting here on what he has said, because something that troubled my soul. I'm really surprised to hear him saying that it's either the PNM or some new party, and he's going to campaign for that. It worries me to see
I think he has a point of view.
He has
just
one.
like you have a point of view,
Point of view.
and I would imagine everybody else in Tobago would have one.
And I think I have a right to respond to that point of view, because that point of view to me is a dangerous one. And I do not want to let him slip away with that and make Farley the enemy. Farley will be judged. Criticize Farley for what he has done, but he will be judged by the people. They are more educated now. They do not need Barnes James to teach him anything. People are reading, they're researching, and are getting information. So I don't like the position he's taking, as if he has a mandate to go out and campaign against Farley, against Watson Duke, so the PNM could win. And if the PNM win, somebody else win. That has to be crazy. That has to be a crazy idea. He campaigned to me last time. It's a crazy idea. So I want him to hear on this channel here. You can call it hard talk. That you're nonsense. Try and enjoy your retirement and leave politics for my children and the young generation and them. But you get involved in this for? You know, he once said that he campaigned against TOP and he campaigned for the PNM. And that's, I guess that worries me too. When the UNC were supporting the in Tobago supporting the TOP, right? And there was all this talk that the UNC is coming to take over. He said he campaigned against the TOP and he campaigned for the PNM. And I recall that prior to that, I saw Vanas campaigning for the TOP. When they just started, I remember him being a very strident speaker, etc. So I'm wondering what is wrong. That Tobago is a place trying to get self-determination, trying to move forward, all right? And instead of you assist, you are being a distraction. You want to stand in a corner, speak your own so-called truth, and try to create some attraction. I'm saying no, now is not time for that. Tobago should be seeking self-determination, all right? Now is not time. You can't teach people, you know. People just want to read for themselves. So don't come in a nonsense, intellectual nonsense, and not on that. Tobago not on that. Come good or do come at all. I'm offended by it, seriously, that you said either the PM go in or somebody else. Come on, catch yourself, man. Catch yourself.
Would you be contesting any seat in the upcoming general election in 2025?
Yes, the PDP will be doing that. PDP contests all elections going forward, but primarily we are based in Tobago and we be focused on Tobago mainly. I say the word mainly on Tobago. We're not going to speak to Trinidad at this point in time because we have to sort out our home first. Dance a yard before you dance abroad.
All right. You would accept that the PNM's majority stands at 2219 in terms of the number of seats.
Yeah.
When we apportion the 41 seats. Do you see Tobago's 2 seats as playing a primary factor in crowning a winner in the general election moving forward in 2025?
Certainly. I believe that will become the fulcrum of power on which all political parties will have to find their balance.
All right. And that fulcrum of power and that initiative that Tobago would have, do you see that as a springboard to get the sort of reform needed to make the THA more independent of central government?
Certainly. Being having those 2 seats, I'll tell you this: having those 2 seats will put Tobago right where it needs to negotiate, and I believe those 2 seats will go to the PDP. There's no reason for it not to go there. All right, and once we have those 2 seats, we will be able to negotiate immediately. Firstly, we are going to seek to have the constitutional reform amended. Now, what's inside there is not acceptable, unacceptable, and it is done so as to tie Tobago to a ward for the next 100, 200 years of our lives. It is totally not good. None of it is good, except for the preamble that states Tobago should be getting self-determination. The preamble in clause 4 states quite logically, quite clearly, and emphatically that Tobago has a right to self-determination to pursue its own political status and to freely develop its own develop its own economy, social and cultural developments of policies, etc. So it's very clear. But the substantive sections of the Constitution does not reflect self-determination. They mirror that of a ward, a glorified ward. And this is another problem I'm having my colleagues, Dr. Vanessa James. When they're talking about these things, they're talking low-grade stuff, nothing that is relevant, nothing that is modern, low-grade stuff, more miles in the sea, more money. Foolishness. What Tobago wants is all our rights. All our rights means that you cannot tell Tobago which law to make and which law not to make. We must decide that. Because as it is right now, if Tobago wants, Tobago should pursue its own independence. Right? We are not a ward of Trinidad. We are not captured by Trinidad. We have been made a war by kidnapping through the law. They have used that amalgamation formed by the Queen of England, right? Back in 1889, somewhere around there, she would have formed, I have all the documents here, where she joined Tobago with Trinidad. Yeah? And then afterwards, she then determined the terms and conditions about 10 years later thereabout, which was to make Tobago a ward, not of Trinidad, but a ward of Trinidad and Tobago. Let me just explain this to you for a while. There's no place called Trinidad except Trinidad and Tobago. There's no country named Trinidad. It's a country named Trinidad and Tobago. So when the Queen joined Tobago and Trinidad, Tobago was a colony, a British colony. Trinidad was a British colony at the point in time. And they joined the two. Right? And they had one governor operating in Trinidad. That was usually the case where the British had colonies, several colonies. They will join them together, all right? And save cost one governor. And we all became, for the first time, Tobago became a crown colony. Tobago operated under the old representative system, which was we elected people, yeah? We had a Tobago House of Assembly back in 1769 thereabout, and they elected people to the House of Assembly. We made laws, we governed things. Not we the people, but the plantocracy system, they govern things. And I could give you a little history on it. In 1876, there was a war, a riot, where in Roxborough, my foreparents and ancestors, therefore, along with some other people, overthrew the planters in Roxborough, and they burned down the police station, and it was a riot. They took Tobago by seizure, and they sent to Grenada for help. Grenada sent to Barbados. They got the British Navy to come in, and they suppressed the thing. And that what happened in May 1876. And right around August of that year, September, the Queen went to the Parliament, the British Parliament, and created an act of Trinidad and Tobago where they joined the country. That's how it happened about. Because they couldn't handle the riot. It was just a little too much for them. People got scared, right? And from that, when they joined it, everything began to fail in Tobago. Everything began to drop. Naturally, P&M style, when they don't want something, they just starve it to death and let it get ugly and bad and then throw it away altogether. That's what they did. But in 1880 or 89, somewhere around there, I can't remember the figure exactly, that's when the Queen, well, maybe 1890, somewhere around 18, I can't remember the year, but in the 1800s, higher. The Queen then, under an order of the British Empire, which means like an executive order, she gave the terms and conditions of that relationship. And at that time, she made Tobago a ward of Trinidad and Tobago. So what I'm saying to you, Trinidad and Tobago is the big thing. And Tobago is a subset of that now. Right? Trinidad has taken on the name Trinidad and Tobago has taken on its original name, Tobago. That is legal madness. I don't know who legal person can unravel it for us, but that's what it is. But we know, and Trinidad knows, that Tobago is entitled to self-determination. What is self-determination? Self-determination is an international law based on cardinal principles, whereby any nation that was in subjugation to colonial powers, you understand what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
With me? Any nation that was in subjugation to colonial powers, whether it be British, French, Dutch, or whoever, they had a right to, the people, they had a right to determine among themselves their own political status. In other words, Britain or the colonial power could not determine your status, right? Which meant that the status of Trinidad was void and the status of Tobago was void. Trinidad met under the guise of Trinidad and Tobago Parliament, which under Eric Williams and Capildeo, and they went to England. No one from Tobago was consulted. They never consulted the people of Tobago because we had no administrative organ at that point in time. The Tobago Self-Assembly was collapsed and was removed altogether. Trinidad then became one of the parishes of Trinidad, so to speak. Yeah? And so when they administered it in England, it was for Trinidad, and Tobago was the appendage, but the name was Trinidad and Tobago. So let's get it right. The injustices that has been done to my foreparents must be corrected. And this is the seriousness of the campaign. Not this nonsense, my friend, but us talking upon them weak arguments about money. That will come. We have already spoken that about people getting involved. That is what we are about. We are about freeing Tobago up to be in a relationship with Trinidad that is not advantageous, where Trinidad use their 39 votes to dumb down our 2 votes in Tobago. It must be equality. The 2 votes in Tobago must be equal to the 39 votes in Trinidad when coming to making laws for Trinidad and Tobago. What do I mean? If you're making a law for Trinidad and Tobago in the parliament, and those 2 persons do not support that vote, then it is not for Tobago, it's a Trinidad vote. And Trinidad will therefore have to be a Trinidad law. Tobago has Tobago laws. So we have to understand we are now going into the stage of a federal government. Whereas the island of Tobago, that's what the Constitution seeks to do. It seeks to see that there will be a Tobago island government. But there's no Trinidad island government. And I'm saying there must be a Trinidad island government. Trinidad has to stop thieving the name Tobago with it, because Trinidad is not the country. Trinidad and Tobago is the country, right? And so we have to set that out. It might be a little bit deep for you in this short session, but it's very heavy stuff here. And this is what I want my friend, Barnes James, to be speaking about. Not those lame arguments you're going around the place with, talking about he got campaign in his old years.
I appreciate what you're saying, and I allowed you to develop it fully. My question is this. If it is you, the PDP, and I'm confident, as you are confident, I share your confidence that the PDP will win the 2 seats in Tobago. When that happens, do you accept that you must know, or you may be in a position when you sit at the table to make decisions for Tobago, that you have to enter into a relationship with either of the 2 competing parties in Trinidad?
Yes, I'm aware of that.
Right. That marriage that will take place when that time comes, and I'm using the word marriage very loosely. It's a union of some kind in terms of. Have you explored in your mind's eye the manifestos of both of those parties, the PNM and the UNC, and concluded in your mind's eye which of the 2 operate in a way that is consistent with your needs, meaning the needs of Tobago and the PDP?
Well, I don't waste my time reading their manifesto. That'd be time wasting, right? When we get to that bridge where the scores are settled, and when Tobago has to play the power broker there, or Tobago has the power ball, we would then negotiate. And I will negotiate equally with both parties. This is what we call managing a country by agreement, and consent. We are not going to be trying to bully each other. We don't have to be friends, like I said. Bandits that sit down here who hate each other and they just plan stuff. The Italian mafia who are against each other have different fractions. They come together and they form peace. We have to understand you don't have to be a friend of a friend to be on the same side with them. You could even partner with your enemies. But what are we partnering to achieve? A better and a more developed Trinidad and Tobago. I believe the islands are better off together as one country. However, we have to eliminate this relationship that places Trinidad as Trinidad and Tobago as a little ward. It's not the relationship that we want to enter into. So I would start a relationship with them.
Right. My question is this. You know yourself. Do you think that, and are you of the view that you can successfully negotiate with either political leader on the other side, the PNM and the UNC, in a manner that there will be no controversy, that there will be an equality of minds at the table when you sit? Because you're very strong-willed and strong-minded, Mr. Duke. Are you of the view that you're sufficiently diplomatic to achieve levels of compromise for the benefit of Tobago when you sit at that table to broker?
In a power relationship, diplomacy is power. You understand what I'm saying to you? Maybe I said it too fast. In any power relationship, power is diplomacy. Let me put it differently. Power is diplomacy. Yeah? If a young man puts a gun at your head and says, get out of the car, could you say please? No, you get out of the car. It's a weird example, but it paints a clear picture. We are talking an election where Tobago holds the fulcrum of power. You will need Tobago to form the government. What are we going to do? You feel they're going to sit down and say please, say this, talk soft? No. What do we want? These are the things that we want for Tobago. These are the things we want for the people in Trinidad. We are for Trinidad and Tobago, of course, not just Tobago, all right? And these things are deal breakers for us. And they will decide. They will decide. And if they go back to the polls, then it's going to be either the same thing or it's going to be a more deadly fight. Trust me. But we will not lose ground.
I follow you completely. My concern is, and I want you to comment on this, what I'm putting here.
Yeah.
The PNM and Keith Rowley, they are extremely confident that the weakness of the opposition is sufficient, that they're going to reduce that minority or slim that majority that they have. In other words, they have the belief that the 5 marginal seats that they're going to capture 3+. It means to say that 2219 that exists, or let us look at Trinidad alone, the 2019 that currently exists, that they're going to be holding perhaps 23 and taking 3 from the UNC. That puts you in a position. Are you of the view that it places you in Tobago now in a position where, unless the majority remains, unless there's a standoff in Trinidad in the way that there is now, the 2019 very close, that it reduces your bargaining power?
Anything that is not a tie will reduce your bargaining power, of course. All right? But if we have to do a reality check, people in Trinidad and Tobago are equal and happy with both parties. That's one thing we're absolutely clear about. People are unhappy with both parties. There will be no majority win in Trinidad by anybody. I just don't see it. But the PNM are always confident. When they got 15-0 and they stole back 1, they were telling everyone it will be the other way around. Yeah? They will get all the seats until they saw the polls, as it turns out, from the hands of the EBC, 15-0. It was 15-0 up to midnight on the 6th of December. Yeah? They took night and make the answer counting over votes. And that's how they end up with that 1 seat. Trickery. That's all I will say. Trickery. Skullduggery. They are not popular in Tobago. They cannot win the elections in Tobago. Not Tobago East, not Tobago West, not the THA. They are persona non grata. They don't even know who their membership is because people just don't want the PNM. They have had enough of them here. They are sick of them in Tobago. So when my colleague say it is between the PNM and someone else, I say maybe they will get sick of him too. Craziness.
In a year's time, we will be looking at another THA election.
Yeah.
Where does the PDP figure in that election in a year's time? It would mean to say that your resources, more resources will have to come to the table in order to contest at both levels. One would only imagine, and this is just my inference, you're concentrating on Tobago. What are your views in terms of the PDP taking control of the THA in a year's time?
That's highly possible. And let me just put it here for clarity. When you say resources, the only resources we think about is human resources. That's the most powerful resources. Once you have human resources, then every other resource would come. You don't have to worry about financial resources. We're not buying votes. We never bought votes. That's why it hurt the PNM so much. They spent so much money and they lost. They eat, they drink, they fed the PNM and they lost. They did the same thing to the TOP. They eat, they drank with them, they fed them and they lost. We don't have that type of money to waste. What we have is a revolution, a political revolution. Our ideas are our attraction, and our mandate is to fulfill those ideas. This time, I'll be leading both battles, and there'll be no worry as I'm not putting anybody up as any chief secretary or anything like that. Until the battle is won, then we decide that. So no one is going to get any false fame at this point in time. But it gets to their head, and they begin to make deals before the election is completed. Not at all.
Are you of the view that your political stock has in any way been, I want to use the word damaged. I'm using it very loosely. It's not any loaded word. I'm simply asking.
It's very loaded. I would say it's very loaded. I'm wondering why you ask the question that way. Why did you frame it the other way around?
Okay, allow me to do that.
You have the view that your political stock has reached is high.
Okay, allow me to change the question. I didn't mean it in that way. My question is simply, and I'm putting it this way: your relationship with Fali Augustine was of such where you all were a team, and from what you explained, you weren't friends, but you were buying into
team. Yeah, team is the right word.
Right. And being a team, do you think with the fall off between yourself and him, and he, assuming the position that he is now, he has formed a new party. He's controlling the reins of power within the THA as we speak, and you are not. That your value has in any way been diminished in the eyes of Tobagonians?
Well, let me tell you this, right? My value, I'm like what you call red ruby. Red ruby is even more expensive than diamond. It's rare, right? My diamond, my value is invaluable, so to speak, to Tobagonians and to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. As you know, I've made my contribution. I have a national profile. I have a national persona. And one thing about Watson Yuki gets the job done. I'm not afraid of the work. I'm not afraid of the job. I get the job done. And so what Tobago is looking for is someone to work, not a star boy or star girl, someone to work. And I think I remain a valuable person in the eyes of Tobagonians. Every single day I am on the ground and I'm traversing Tobago land and breadth. I could tell you, Tobago is waiting for those elections to make their voices known. Let me say, there can be no political victory without the victory of a political leader in any politics, anywhere you go in the world. It is a political leader that leads the people to victory. Okay?
Yes.
And I have led the people to victory, not one time, not two times, not three times. We have diminished and wiped out the PNM completely in 5 short years. 5 short years. We have beaten them with almost 7,000 votes. Tobago votes, that is. And we with no money. That's the irony of it all. 7,000 votes additional to them with no money. No one has ever done that yet in this history of Tobago House of Assembly, this last history year. When they move the seats from 12 to 15, we wipe them off the map. Somebody needs to say congratulations for that. But somehow, when a person is blessed, some folks are stressed over it, and they try to beat the man down and small him up, or the woman down and small she up, and make it look as if it's dumb luck, fool's luck. You get through. That was no accident. We had nothing attractive about us other than our message. When we told persons we are going to give them 10 million every single year so they could participate in turning the economy and developing the country, that was a wow. That was a Kodak moment. Yeah, that was a Kodak moment. And so we have to understand that the PDP is revolutionary, and that's why we promise the people a political revolution. My mileage is very high because the PDP is the embodiment of what's Duke and what's the embodiment of the PDP. We don't call ourselves anything but Spartans, you know. Spartans, a little bit, but the Talawa, just run in. They have courage. And so you will hear the PDP Spartans. You will hear the PNM Red Army. The Spartans face off with the Red Army and destroy them. I'm telling you. Right? I came into politics when there was nobody in Tobago, you know, only PNM, you know, 12 seats, you know. They won 12 seats. All right? Yeah. It was only the PNM, no opposition. When I came inside with every single thing bad against me. I had all type of charges against me. All right? By the time I faced the next national elections, which it was in 2020, the charge me with the compound that with sedition. They start trying to overthrow the country too. So I'm one always under the gun, always being attacked. But if the people live amongst know you, nobody could tell them different. And I used to be people that I love them. If they know you, you can't come and tell them nothing. Imagine Rowley is a prime minister from Tobago and they vote him out. Rowley has no credibility in Tobago. Understand what I'm saying to you, you know? Do this, watch it as a simple thing, you know. PNM wasn't just defeated and they was simply wiped out. They cannot come back. They cannot come back in Tobago. They're done with. All the money they spend, we're going to eat them, fed them, and vote them out again. Because now become a revolutionary state where people fighting for what they want. And that is self-determination. The right to think on our own. Yeah.
When the NAR came into power in 1986, it was a landslide victory of 33 seats to 3.
Yeah.
We saw Ada Robinson ascending into the position of Prime Minister so many years ago. In a subsequent election, when the majorities were quite closer, and Tobago featured in terms of brokering the difference between who will ascend power or not, Robinson assumed the position of president, and Basil Pandey became prime minister.
Yeah.
Do you see yourself featuring in the next election similarly, where you may be in a position to become prime minister of this country, Trinidad and Tobago, or another senior position, and from that standpoint, you will be able to influence or steer the course in terms of change structurally, in terms of constitutional change and so on? Do you see yourself in that position?
Yes, I see myself in that position. But let me say again, in as much as I'm a strong person, I'm also a person that is given to reasoning, because I couldn't have reach by reach without being a reasonable person at the end of the day. So this is not a bullying tactic where I go inside, I bully the UNC, I bully the PNM. No. This is one where I hold a seat of power, and therefore the conversation is going to be quite different. All right? It will comes down to who wants to be in power and who wishes to remain in a position. It simply comes down to that. And whosoever wants to be in power, I'm willing to have a negotiation with them. We all are going to win. They will win, and I will win. It's a win-win situation. We will govern this country together. All right? Whoever wants to be in opposition, yes, they can go in opposition. I will stop them. So I will be having a conversation with whosoever wants to be in power. And that of itself opens the door for concessions and for proper conversation.
The Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, Mr. Rowley, is a very strong-minded individual. He speaks, and his language isn't always conciliatory. He refused to meet with the opposition in relation to having crime talks at the same table. When he does agree to meet, he pulls himself out of the equation and he places other representatives to sit. He openly speaks that the opposition is part of the problem. One can only infer out of that is that when the majorities when the majorities play out in Parliament in terms of getting support from the opposition to have certain pieces of legislation passed, vis-a-vis the bail amendment bill, vis-a-vis the firearms amendment, the gang legislation. He isn't getting the procurement legislation. He wasn't and still hasn't been able to secure support from the opposition. If you were to become Prime Minister, do you perceive that you would be the sort of leader that would be operating in the manner that he does? Or you're seeing that there has to be, for there to be change and for there to be harmony in terms of within the parliament, that a different approach must be taken?
Well, I learned from Rowley a lot. He's a teacher to me. He's a mentor. I learn what not to do. When I got Rowley, I learned what not to do. So he's a mentor to me. And I will not be governing like him, but I will be governed based on what he has informed me not to do. Yeah? Hope I answered your question.
As we come into the close, Watson, this is David McIntyre, Magdalene.
Hey, my brother, greetings.
How are we, boy? Tell me the composition of your team. Are you satisfied with a team that, since the pulling apart with you and Farley, can you put together a team that will be, a team to reckon with for elections?
Well, of course. I usually use a statement jokingly, right? But it makes a point. I say I take some lame ducks and turn them into peacocks. That's what I say, right? I take some lame ducks and turn them into peacocks. So they're walking around strutting themselves as if that's somebody. But I mean, that has to do with the creative genius of who Watson Duke is. It's like God taking clay and make man, You look at what a man take to create something great, and then you watch him and say, wow, that is good. An artist will take a blank piece of paper and create a masterpiece with millions. You say, wow, phew, that's good. So the PNM is a formidable foe. Let's admit that. And when I take people who were just nobodies, so to speak, nobodies as inverted commas, but people who are off the radar, and I put them together as a team, and I use my superstar, my national figure, my imagery, right? The ideology of Watson Duke. And I pushed that. And we came to victory. I mean, kudos to me. Somebody say kudos to me now. But I'm not man to clap inside it. You cannot clap right now inside it, bro. I defeat the great PNM. I wipe them out. So don't underestimate the giftings of Watson Duke. I simply step back and allow Farley to continue. And I'm not standing on his neck. I'm saying the people of Tobago will judge him. The people of Tobago will judge him. I'm not standing on his neck. I'm not his enemy. At least I don't see him as an enemy, right? Neither is he my friend. He's what he is. I am who I am. We were a team. We are no longer a team. All right?
Thank you, sir.
Nice.
If we look at the status quo that exists in Tobago as we speak, it is clear that you have the view that the Farley Augustine administration has not delivered for the people of Tobago. What would you like to see done for the people of Tobago in the year that is left given the current executive? And do you see Tobago's life and quality of life improving within the next year under this administration? That is the THA I'm speaking of.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult for me to want anything more than to give people more jobs. In Tobago, it's just 60,000 persons, right? Including children and persons beyond the age of 60, etc. And when you come down to the workforce, we could do more to put the workforce to work other than cutlass work and these kind of menial tasks. People can be working from a professional level, and so we need to reorganize the way we conduct our affairs in Tobago, and that's part of what economic development. I'm not sure if they have the talent around them or the scope to do it, or the political will to do it. I'm not sure. But Tobago needs to expand its borders and get out of that early morning work and these menial tasks and put people to work in a more meaningful way that they can contribute to the building of the economy. Why do you keep those tasks there? Of course, you're going to add to that. That's my view. On the issue of whether they can do it or not, certainly anything is possible. But how possible it is, I think, is not very possible given their track record and given the way I foresee their trajectory.
All right. I'm going to give you the final word. What would you say to the people of Tobago at this point in time, meaning today, in terms of inspiring hope that once you are, the PDP is given the mandate of power in Tobago, meaning to control of the THA, that they're going to get what they're going to have an improved package for all Tobagonians. What would you say to the Tobagonians now, given the opportunity and given that you're in a position to effect change once given that power?
Once the PDP rises to the platform where we can affect the lives of the people in Tobago,
Farid?
Yeah, you see me, right?
Yeah.
listen,
We're listening to you.
Sorry, somebody tried to call me on my computer and throw me off completely. Yeah. Right. So once we're in a position where we can manage a platform of change, we are going to seek self-determination for Tobago, which is the right of Tobago to be in a relationship with Trinidad as an equal partner. We will also seek to redefine what are the economic offerings of Tobago to Trinidad and how we can further develop Tobago outside of what it has been offering and what it could offer. So it's a very, it's a very bright eye kind of a exciting experience to be in a position where we can actually transform Tobago to be one of the leading Caribbean islands that does not resemble its past colonial power, but resemble its future. We must build a Tobago of the future, and we must build that now. That's my view to Tobagonians at this point in time.
Mr. Duke, I want to thank you for making yourself available to us. It's been a very informative afternoon, and I really enjoyed this discussion. I'm hoping that it's a door that we've opened that we could bring you again, and perhaps you could spend 2 hours with us and develop some of your ideas.
Yeah,
I'm happy to have you, and it's always good to see you. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Take care, people. Bless Tobago.
Enjoy evening. Blessings.
Thanks, man.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Lovely.
That's it.
David, enjoy the evening, and to the listening public, thank you again to Mr. Duke and Mr. Vanos James for making themselves available to us. We look forward to another week next week. Thank you so much. Blessings, David. Enjoy your day.
One of the messages here, the comments here is a great program. Easy, Mr. Duke. Mr. Duke, always a must hear.
Certainly so.
Yes. Enjoy your evening too.
Same to you. Thank you. Enjoy your evening. Bye.
Okay. That's it for today's edition of Hard Talk with Farid Ali as host. Farid will be back next Wednesday with another edition of Hard Talk right here at Power 102 Digital.